The summer of 1969 hung over Las Vegas like a fever dream. The desert heat didn't just rise from the asphalt. It shimmered, it distorted. It made the whole city look like it was melting into liquid gold. The Strip blazed with neon prophecies. Each casino a cathedral chants. Each showroom a temple where entertainers became gods for 2 hours a night. And at the top of that glittering pantheon stood Dean Martin. His name burned 40 feet high in bulbs that could be seen from the desert highway. Inside the casino showrooms, women in evening gowns and men in tailored suits paid top dollar to watch him lean against a microphone, glass in hand, half smile playing his lips, voice smoother than aged bourbon. That was the public Dean. The Dean everybody thought they knew. The Dean who made it all look effortless, who seemed to stumble through life on charm and charisma, who appeared to care about nothing more than the next joke, the next song, the next drink. But that Dean was a performance, a brilliant one, carefully calibrated and ruthlessly maintained. Because the Real Dean Martin, the one who existed when the spotlight went dark, was something else entirely. He was a calculating businessman, a strategic investor, a man who understood that in Las Vegas, applause faded but ownership lasted forever. While other performers burned through their earnings, Dean invested quietly through a private holding company that few people knew existed. He purchased commercial real estate just off the Strip, small performance venues, upscale lounges, restaurants that catered to the casino crowd. He believed in one thing above all else: control. Control of contracts, control of revenue streams, control of respect. To manage his expanding business empire, Dean maintained a substantial account at an elite private bank on a prestigious boulevard, 3 blocks from the Strip, not one of the flashy casino-affiliated institutions. This was old Vegas money, oil money, real estate dynasties, conservative, discreet, and exclusive. The bank occupied a limestone building that looked like it had been transported from a Philadelphia banking district. Polished marble floors, brass teller cages that gleamed under soft, expensive lighting, leather chairs in the waiting area that smelled like privilege. This was where the real money in Vegas lived, the money that made money regardless of whether the slots paid out or the tables ran hot. Dean rarely visited in person. His accountants handled most transactions. His business manager dealt with the paperwork. But on a particular Tuesday afternoon in July, Dean walked through those brass-framed doors himself. He needed cash, not pocket money. Real cash, $250,000. It was seed money for a new project, a supper club concept he'd been developing, a venue designed to give performers real freedom, a place where artists could headline without signing their souls away to casino contracts, without owing piece after piece of themselves to gaming bosses who treated entertainers like property. Dean wore a tailored charcoal suit, no tie, sunglasses even indoors. He moved through the world like a man who owned every room he entered. Calm, relaxed, unhurried, because he understood something fundamental about power. People who need to prove they have it don't actually have it. The atmosphere shifted the moment he approached the teller line. Heads turned. Whispers rippled through the marble lobby. Recognition happened in stages. First a face, famous from 1,000 photographs and movie posters. Then the name. Then the understanding that Dean Martin, the Dean Martin, was standing in line like an ordinary customer. The teller, a woman in her late 40s named Mrs. Patricia Thornton, saw him coming. She had perfectly set hair, the kind that didn't move in wind or weather. Her makeup was precise. Her posture was rigid. And when she looked at Dean Martin, her expression carried no warmth, no excitement, just a thin, professional skepticism. Dean reached her window and slid a check across the polished counter. His signature was already on it, the amount written in his distinctive, slightly careless handwriting. $250,000, to be withdrawn in cash. Mrs. Thornton looked at the check. Then she looked at Dean. Then she looked at the check again, and her pause lasted just a fraction too long. It was a pause that communicated volumes. Doubt, disbelief, something close to contempt. "Is this correct?" she asked, her voice polite on the surface, but edged with something sharp underneath. Dean removed his sunglasses slowly, folding them with deliberate care. "I don't usually guess with numbers that large." "Mr. Martin," she said, and the way she said his name made it sound like a stage name, like something fake, like a joke. This is an unusual request. Unusual how? Withdrawals of this magnitude in physical currency are highly irregular for accounts of your type. There it was. Your type, not your account classification. Your type. The words hung in the air like smoke, and Dean understood exactly what they meant. My account has more than sufficient funds, Dean said evenly. I believe that covers irregular. Mrs. Thornton's mouth tightened. I'll need to verify this with management. Then verify it. She picked up the phone without breaking eye contact. A small power play, a way of saying, you might be famous, but in this building I control the gates. She spoke in low tones to someone on the other end, glancing at Dean several times, her expression growing more pinched with each passing second. A few minutes later, the branch manager appeared. His name was Gerald Hutchins, a man in his mid-50s with silver hair and a smile that never reached his eyes. He dressed like money, that peculiar East Coast wealth that showed itself in understated details, perfectly knotted ties, shoes that cost more than most people's monthly rent. Mr. Martin, Hutchins said, extending his hand. Dean shook it, noting the brief, weak grip, the hand of someone who'd never done physical work in his life. I understand you're requesting a substantial cash withdrawal. Not requesting. Withdrawing. It's my money. Of course. Hutchins glanced at the check, and Dean saw it again, that flicker of doubt, that suggestion that somehow this couldn't be legitimate. The thing is, withdrawals of this nature require certain protocols, internal confirmation procedures. For security purposes, you understand. What's to confirm? My account balance is on your computer. Yes, but the movement of physical currency at this level raises certain compliance flags. We need to ensure everything is documented appropriately, that all parties involved are properly identified and verified. Dean let him talk, watching performance. Hutchins was good at this, at making bureaucracy sound reasonable, at making delays sound like protection. But Dean had been in enough business meetings, signed enough contracts, negotiated enough deals to recognize a stall when he heard one. Other customers were watching now, pretending not to but listening to every word. A woman in a fur stole, despite the desert heat. Two men in business suits, holding briefcases. A young couple opening their first savings account. All of them witnesses to whatever was about to happen. How long will this verification take? Dean asked. Hutchins smiled that empty smile again. We should be able to process this within 24 to 48 hours. If you'd like to return tomorrow or Thursday. No, Dean said quietly. I'm sorry. I said no. I'm here now. The money is in my account now. I want to withdraw it now. Mrs. Thornton, still behind her teller window, made a small sound, something between a scoff and a laugh. It was quiet, but in the marble lobby it carried. Dean turned to look at her. Something funny? She met his eyes, and for a moment a professional mask slipped. Mr. Martin, this is a banking institution, not a casino cage. We don't just hand out stacks of cash to. She caught herself, but the pause said everything. To anyone who walks in off the street. Anyone, Dean repeated softly. Or someone like me? I didn't say that. You didn't have to. Hutchins stepped in, his corporate diplomat voice smoothing over the tension. I'm sure Mrs. Thornton meant no offense. This is simply a matter of standard banking procedure. Large cash transactions require additional oversight, regardless of who requests them. Regardless, Dean said, still looking at Mrs. Thornton. That's an interesting word. Mrs. Thornton's face flushed slightly, a red creep across her carefully powdered cheeks. She picked up the check, Dean's check, and held it between her fingers like it was something distasteful. Mr. Martin, perhaps if you called ahead, made an appointment, given us advance notice. I've been banking here for 6 years, Dean interrupted. I've never needed advance notice before. You've never requested this amount before. My money is my money, regardless of the amount. Mrs. Thornton's expression hardened. Something shifted in her eyes, something that had been carefully controlled finally breaking loose. Mr. Martin, I understand that in your profession, people are accustomed to immediate gratification. But this is a serious financial institution. We have standards. We have procedures. We can't just... And then she did it. She tore the check. Not completely. Just a small rip in the corner, but enough. Enough to make it unusable. Enough to make a statement. The sound of tearing paper echoed in the marble lobby like a gunshot. The room went completely silent. Every conversation stopped. Every transaction paused. Everyone stared. Dean looked at the torn check, then at Mrs. Thornton, then at Hutchins. His face showed nothing. No anger. No surprise. Just a careful, calculating blankness. That check, Dean said slowly, represented my legal authorization to access my own funds. Mrs. Thornton's hand trembled slightly, but her voice stayed firm. The check was improperly prepared. You'll need to submit a new request through proper channels with appropriate advance documentation. Improperly prepared, Dean repeated. Is that what we're calling it? Hutchins touched Dean's elbow, trying to guide him away from the teller window. Mr. Martin, I apologize for any confusion. If you'd step into my office, we can discuss. Dean pulled his arm free, not roughly, but firmly. I don't need to discuss anything. I need my money. That's what accounts are for. That's what banks do. Unless... He looked around the lobby at all the watching faces. Unless there's some other reason you're refusing service. The words hung in the air. Some other reason. Everyone in that room understood what he was suggesting, what he was accusing them of, and the implications made several people look away uncomfortably. Mr. Martin, Hutchins said, his voice dropping to a harsh whisper, I'd advise you to be very careful about making accusations you can't prove. Dean smiled, but there was no warmth in it. I'm not making accusations. I'm making observations. And what I observe is a bank that just destroyed my legal financial instrument without cause. What I observe is being treated differently than your other customers. What I observe is a pattern. He turned to address the lobby, his voice carrying easily, performers training making sure every word reached every ear. How many of you have requested large cash withdrawals? How many of you have been told you need to wait 48 hours? How many of you have had your checks torn up? Silence. Uncomfortable, guilty silence. Dean nodded slowly, like something had been confirmed. He looked back at Hutchins. Tell your board I'll be in touch. Mr. Martin, I said I'll be in touch. You want procedures? Standards? Advance notice? Consider this your advance notice. He retrieved the torn check from Mrs. Thornton's hand, his fingers never actually touching hers. Keep this. Frame it, because it's going to be the most expensive piece of paper your bank ever destroyed. Dean put his sunglasses back on and walked toward the exit. His footsteps echoed on the marble floor, each step deliberate and unhurried. He didn't slam the door. He didn't need to. The quiet click of it closing behind him was somehow more powerful than any dramatic exit could have been. Outside, the Vegas heat hit him like walking into a wall. The afternoon sun turned everything white and harsh. Dean stood on the sidewalk for a moment, letting the anger he'd carefully controlled finally surface. His jaw tightened. His hands clenched into fists, then relaxed. This wasn't just about the money. This was deeper. This was about something he'd been fighting his entire life. Something he thought he'd left behind when he changed his name from Dino Crocetti to Dean Martin. When he climbed from working-class Ohio to Hollywood stardom. But you never really left it behind, did you? You could change your name, your clothes, your accent. You could make millions. You could have your name in lights and your face on magazine covers. But walk into the wrong room, and suddenly you were Dino Crocetti again. The Italian immigrant son, the kid from the wrong side of town, the ethnic entertainer who didn't belong in marble lobbies with old money. Patricia Thornton hadn't just torn his check. She'd torn something else. A carefully maintained illusion that success meant acceptance, that achievement meant respect, that money was the ultimate equalizer. Dean took off his sunglasses and looked at the bank building. Limestone and brass and marble, all that expensive permanence, all that architectural authority, designed to make you feel small. Wrong move, Dean said quietly to the building, to Mrs. Thornton behind her teller window, to Gerald Hutchins in his expensive suit. Very wrong move. That evening, Instead of going directly to the casino for his show, Dean sat in his suite at the Desert Inn. His attorney, Marcus Klein, sat across from him. His financial advisor, Robert Chun, spread papers across the coffee table. Both men had worked with Dean for years. Both men recognized the expression on his face. "Tell me about the bank," Dean said. Marcus flipped open a folder. Nevada Banking Corporation, founded in 1947, assets approximately $280 million. They're solid but not spectacular. Mid-tier operation catering to affluent individuals and small businesses. Solid, Dean repeated. "Tell me about not solid." Robert adjusted his glasses, scanning financial reports. They're facing a regulatory review next month. Nevada Banking Commission is tightening requirements across the board. The bank needs to demonstrate stronger liquidity ratios, more cash reserves, better capital position. How much stronger? Conservatively, they need an injection of $5 to $7 million in liquid capital to present a healthy balance sheet. Without it, they'll face restrictions on their lending capacity, potentially their operating license. Dean leaned back, a slow smile spreading across his face. They need money. Badly, Marcus confirmed. They've been shopping for a major investor for 3 months. No takers so far. The board is getting desperate. Desperate, Dean repeated, tasting the word. That's a good position to be in, if you're on the right side of it. What are you thinking? Robert asked, though his tone suggested he already knew. Dean picked up his glass of water, ice cubes clinking against the sides. I'm thinking that a bank that just refused to give me access to my own money is about to discover what access actually means. I'm thinking about ownership. I'm thinking about teaching a very expensive lesson. Marcus glanced at Robert, then back at Dean. You want to buy it? I want to buy in, Dean corrected. Enough to matter. Enough to control operations. Enough to restructure management. He paused, then added quietly, enough to fire people. This isn't cheap revenge, Marcus warned. We're talking about a multi-million-dollar acquisition for the purpose of firing a teller and a branch manager. It's not revenge, Dean said. It's a statement. It's about showing people like Patricia Thornton that when you treat someone like they're beneath you, you might want to make sure they're not actually above you. Robert was already calculating on a notepad. We'd need to move fast. The regulatory review is in 4 weeks. They need a deal done before then. Then we give them a deal. Dean said, we give them exactly what they need, with terms that give us exactly what we want. Which is, Dean's smile turned cold. Operational control of the branch, board representation, authority over personnel decisions, and a written provision that allows us to restructure management without board approval for cause. That's aggressive, Marcus said. They might not go for it. They will, Dean replied, because desperate people don't negotiate. They accept. The next morning, before the bank opened to public customers, Dean's legal team submitted a formal proposal to Nevada Banking Corporation's board of directors. The offer was simple, brutal, and perfectly timed. $7 million in immediate liquid capital in exchange for 35% equity, 3 board seats, and operational oversight of the main branch location. The money would be wired within 24 hours of acceptance. No lengthy due diligence period. No contingencies. Take it or face regulatory shutdown. The board meeting lasted less than 90 minutes. They had no real choice, and everyone knew it. Dean's offer was the only lifeline they had, and he knew it, which is why his terms were so aggressive. You don't negotiate when you're drowning. You grab the hand pulling you up, no matter what it costs. By noon, the preliminary agreements were signed. By 3 p.m., Dean's attorneys were reviewing final contracts. By 4:30 p.m., Dean Martin walked back into the Nevada Banking Corporation, but this time he didn't enter through the customer entrance. He walked through the executive corridor, flanked by Marcus Klein and Robert Chin, escorted by the regional director of operations, a nervous man named Stewart who kept apologizing for things he hadn't personally done. The main branch floor was busy with afternoon customers when Dean appeared beside Stewart at the top of the marble stairs. The regional director had requested an emergency staff meeting, pulling all bank employees from their stations to the central floor. The atmosphere shifted immediately. Tellers exchanged confused glances. Customers whispered, and Patricia Thornton, still at her window from yesterday, felt ice water spread through her veins as she recognized a man standing next to the regional director. Gerald Hutchins emerged from his office, attempting a professional smile that died the moment he saw Dean. "Mr. Martin, I wasn't aware you had an appointment." Stewart held up his hand, cutting Hutchins off. "Ladies and gentlemen, I need your attention. I have an important announcement regarding our banking operations." He paused, composing himself, clearly uncomfortable with what he had to say. Effective immediately, Nevada Banking Corporation has entered into a strategic partnership with Martin Holdings, LLC. Silence. Absolute, crushing silence. Stewart continued, his voice gaining a nervous energy. "This partnership includes a substantial capital investment that will ensure our continued operations and growth. As part of this arrangement, Mr. Dean Martin will serve on our board of directors and will have operational oversight of this branch location." Patricia Thornton's face drained of color. Her hand gripped the edge of her teller window, as if the marble itself might save her. Dean stepped forward. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "Yesterday," he said calmly, and every person in that marble lobby strained to hear him, "I came into this bank as a customer. I had a legitimate request to access my own funds. I was treated with skepticism, delay, and ultimately disrespect." He let that sink in, watching faces, seeing understanding dawn in some eyes, denial in others. "Yesterday, a check I wrote was torn in front of me, not because it was invalid, not because there were insufficient funds, but because someone behind that teller window decided that I didn't deserve the same service as your other customers." Patricia Thornton tried to speak, her voice coming out strangled. "Mr. Martin, I was simply following procedure." Dean finished for her. "That's what you're going to claim? That humiliating a customer, destroying their legal financial instrument, making assumptions about their worthiness based on their profession or their background, that's procedure?" Hutchins stepped forward, his face red. "Mr. Martin, Mrs. Thornton was acting within her authority to question unusual transactions. If there was any misunderstanding—" "There was no misunderstanding," Dean interrupted, his voice hard now. "She understood exactly what she was doing. You understood exactly what you were doing. You looked at me and you didn't see a business owner with substantial assets. You didn't see a customer with a 6-year banking relationship. You saw an entertainer. Someone from your perspective who didn't belong in your marble lobby, handling your kind of money." He turned to address the entire room. "How many other customers have you treated this way? How many other people have walked through these doors and been judged not by their account balance, but by their name, their background, their profession?" Dean turned back to Hutchins. "Yesterday, you told me this bank has standards. Today, I'm here to make sure you understand what those standards actually are. This institution will treat every customer with respect. Every customer will receive equal service. Every customer will be valued based on their business, not on whether they meet some arbitrary standard of acceptability." Stewart cleared his throat. "Mr. Martin has requested a full review of customer service policies and procedures. That review begins today." Dean looked at Patricia Thornton. "Mrs. Thornton, you're dismissed, effective immediately. Your final paycheck will be sent to your home address. Security will escort you from the building." Patricia's mouth opened, closed, open again. "You can't. I've been here for 12 years. "You're right," Dean said quietly. "You were here for 12 years. And in those 12 years, how many people did you treat the way you treated me? How many customers did you judge and dismiss and disrespect because they didn't fit your definition of acceptable?" She couldn't answer, or wouldn't. Either way, security was already approaching, polite but firm. Dean turned to Hutchins. "You're reassigned. Corporate will find you a position somewhere appropriate. Somewhere you don't have direct customer contact. Somewhere your particular management style won't cause the bank further exposure." Hutchins's face went white, then red, then white again. "This is unacceptable. I've done nothing wrong. I was protecting the bank's interests." "You were protecting your prejudices," Dean said flatly. And now you're being protected from making this bank liable for discrimination. Take the reassignment or take nothing. Your choice. The marble lobby was so quiet you could hear people breathing. Everyone watched as Patricia Thornton was escorted out, her shoulders shaking, whether from anger or tears or both. Everyone watched as Gerald Hutchins walked stiffly back to his office to collect his personal items. Dean turned to a young teller, a woman in her 20s who'd been watching the entire scene with wide eyes. "What's your name?" "Sarah. Sarah Mendez." "How long have you worked here, Sarah?" 8 months. "You think you could handle being head teller?" Sarah blinked. Yes. Yes, sir." "Then congratulations. You're promoted. Report to Stewart tomorrow morning for briefing." Dean walked slowly across the polished floor, his footsteps echoing. He stopped at Patricia Thornton's former window and turned back to face the room. "I want to make something very clear. I didn't buy into this bank for revenge. I bought in because I believe in what banking should be. Access, opportunity, service without judgment. And yes, I bought in to make sure that what happened to me yesterday never happens to anyone else." He pulled out his checkbook and wrote another check, the same amount as yesterday, $250,000. He slid it across the counter to Sarah Mendez. "I believe I requested a cash withdrawal," he said calmly. Sarah picked up the check with trembling hands. She looked at the amount, at Dean's signature, at Stewart standing nearby nodding encouragement. I'll process this immediately, Mr. Martin." "Take your time," Dean said. "Do it right. But Sarah, don't make me wait 48 hours. She almost smiled. "No, sir. 20 minutes. Maybe 30. Perfect." Dean walked to the leather chairs in the waiting area and sat down. He picked up a financial magazine and pretended to read while the entire bank processed what just happened. Customers whispered. Employees hurried about their business with renewed energy, as if Dean's presence had electrified the air. 23 minutes later, Sarah approached him with a leather satchel. "Your withdrawal, Mr. Martin. $250,000 in $100 bills, as requested. Would you like security to escort you to your vehicle?" Dean stood and took the satchel. "No need. But thank you, Sarah. Professional service. That's all anyone wants." He walked out of the bank into the blazing Nevada afternoon, carrying $250,000 in cash, knowing that every eye in that marble lobby was watching him leave. The story spread through Las Vegas like wildfire, not the sanitized version. The real one, Dean Martin, dismissed as just an entertainer, had bought partial ownership of the bank that insulted him and fired the people responsible within 24 hours. It was the kind of story Vegas loved, the kind of story that had teeth. Within a week, other banks started reviewing their customer service policies. Within a month, several prominent entertainers called Dean to thank him for making a statement they'd been too afraid to make themselves. Because it wasn't just about Dean. It was about every performer, every artist, every person who'd ever been made to feel less than simply for what they did for a living. The supper club Dean had been planning, the one he'd needed the cash for, opened 6 months later. He named it the Dignity Room. It became known as the only venue in Vegas where artists could perform without signing exploitive contracts, where talent was respected and compensated fairly, where your worth wasn't determined by how much control the house could exert over you. Patricia Thornton never worked in banking again. Gerald Hutchins took a quiet position in commercial lending in Phoenix, far from customer service, far from the spotlight. And Sarah Mendez? She eventually became branch manager, known for treating every customer, regardless of background or profession, with equal respect. But the real legacy of that July afternoon wasn't about specific people. It was about the moment when someone said, "No, not to me, not anymore." It was about understanding that respect isn't given based on someone else's permission. It's demanded. And sometimes demanding it requires more than words. Sometimes it requires buying the bank. Dean Martin never publicly discussed the incident. He didn't need to. The story told itself, spreading through Vegas and then beyond, becoming part of the mythology of what the Rat Pack really represented. Not just cool sophistication and effortless talent, but the willingness to fight for dignity when dignity was denied. Years later, a young comedian approached Dean at a Vegas show. He'd heard the story, the real story, and wanted to know if it was true. Dean just smiled a half smile and said, "Kid, in this town, power isn't about who's got the most money. It's about who's willing to use it. So you really bought a bank just to fire a teller?" Dean shook his head. "I bought a bank to prove a point. Firing her was just a consequence of that point. The point being, treat people like they're beneath you, and you might find out they're actually above you. That's cold." "No," Dean said, "that's justice. Cole would have been doing nothing. Cole would have been accepting it. I just made sure she understood that her position gave her authority, but it didn't give her the right to abuse it." The comedian nodded, understanding something important. So it was about respect. "It's always about respect," Dean replied. "Everything else is just details." And that's the real story, not the dramatic version with heroes and villains. The real one, where a man walked into a bank, was treated as less than human, and instead of accepting it or walking away or just being angry, he fundamentally changed the power structure. Patricia Thornton tore a check. Dean Martin tore apart the assumption that entertainers were second-class customers. That success in the spotlight meant you were beneath those who worked in the shadows of old money. August 12, 1969. The day Dean Martin walked into a bank as a customer and walked out as an owner. The day a teller learned that power has limits. The day respect stopped being optional. That's not just a story about revenge. That's a story about knowing your worth, about refusing to accept disrespect, no matter how politely it's delivered, about understanding that sometimes the only way to change the rules is to buy the rule book. And in Las Vegas, where everything and everyone has a price, Dean Martin proved that dignity is the one thing that can never be bought. But the people who try to take it from you, they can definitely be taught a lesson, a very expensive lesson. The kind of lesson that gets told and retold, becoming legend, becoming myth, becoming the story of how one man, armed with nothing but principle and a checkbook, fired the people who thought they could humiliate him. Dean Martin never raised his voice that day. He didn't have to. He just changed who signed the paychecks. And sometimes that's louder than any applause.